What is up, guys? Rick Chelchis here, and today we're going to be taking a look at all of the different exotic weapons you can earn in the updated 390 Light King's Fall raid in the Age of Triumph for Destiny. Now, the King's Fall weapons often get a bad rap for being, well, trash. So we're going to be taking a look at their stats, at their perks, doing a mini review for each one of these weapons, and discussing whether that's really the case, or are there some diamonds in the rough. So let's get started with the OG exotic King's Fall weapon, the original raid exotic tied to this particular raid, the Touch of Malice Scout Rifle. This is one of my favorite weapons in the game just because it feels so much like an exotic. It is so unique. It looks so cool. It's just something that you definitely want to have. And you have to do a very complicated exotic quest to actually get this weapon, but it is still tied to King's Fall. Now, what makes this weapon special? What are its exotic perks? Well, they're pretty damn unique. This is a fast-firing scout rifle in terms of its damage archetype, but it has the perk Touch of Malice. What this does is that this weapon technically has an unlimited magazine. Once you get down to one round in the magazine, it will not go to zero. It will just keep shooting. And not only that, once you get to one round in the magazine, the damage of the rounds will double. They will be doing double damage. Now you may be wondering, that seems overpowered, and just by that, it is. In terms of damage output, this is one of the best guns in the entire game. The DPS is insane, but there is a downside, and that downside is that once you get down to that one round and you start doing those double damage shots, it drains your health. Each shot takes away a bit of your health, and so you are limited by your actual health. You're limited by how long you want to actually survive when using this gun, because if you keep shooting it, you will kill yourself. Now, it does have another exotic perk, the Touch of Mercy, where 3 rapid kills will return a portion of your health, so that just makes it a little bit easier to use. So, when using this weapon, again, you have a pretty big upside. You have unbelievable damage output for a primary, but you also have a pretty big downside. You're going to literally kill yourself if you get too greedy. And that's really how you play this weapon, is balancing how much you can output on an enemy, and that is definitely good. If you see a yellow health Reaver Captain and you're like, I need to kill this guy, you can just keep shooting, sacrifice your health, and just mow down that one particular enemy. But you're also going to have to really keep your health in mind, and this weapon can all the time get you killed. If you get overzealous and you don't notice a guy behind you, one thrall smack because you were going ham on a boss could end up costing you your life. Now, luckily for testing this weapon, and all other weapons actually, the Heroic Strike playlist this week has the small arms burn, meaning that primary weapons deal around double damage. So all of the weapons you're going to see were tested under the same conditions. We don't have to worry about the arc weapons looking fantastic because there's arc burn, for example. And you can see some pretty dirty stuff happening in the background with some double damage shots, plus that small arms. Whew, it does a lot of damage. But it's time to move on to the newly introduced Adept exotic primaries. Starting out here with the Void exotic primaries, and we're going to begin with the Doom of Chelchis Scout Rifle. Now, this weapon has 2 unique perks that all of these weapons are going to share. Firstly, it has the passive perk Will of Light. This perk makes this weapon deal extra damage against Taken, which can be very, very useful. You get a 10% damage bonus when you're in strikes that feature Taken, which is a lot of strikes when you're in activities that feature Taken, like when you're doing the Prison of Elders, for example, so it's definitely a perk that comes up pretty often. This weapon also has the unique raid perk Cocoon. What this perk does is that when the weapon is stowed away, it will actually reload after a small period of time. So, the best scenario for when to use this is if you're damaging a boss, you can empty an entire magazine of the Doom on the boss, switch to your sniper, go to town on the boss with your sniper, switch back to the Doom, and it will likely be reloaded. This does miracles for your damage output. All of the time spent reloading is now spent switching weapons and shooting. It's just fantastic. Now also we're ending with the perk Full Auto, and the reason I mention this is because normally for the legendary version of the Doom, you can actually have 4 random perks that spawn in this last perk slot. However, for the exotic versions, it's always going to be that same perk. So the exotic Doom of Chelchis Adept version will always have Full Auto, which is definitely one of the better perks you were looking for. In terms of the stats, and as you can see from the background gameplay, they're pretty painfully average. A magazine size of 17 is decent, the range is actually decent, but the stability is nothing to write home about, and the reload is pretty poor as well. Now, compared to the Vault of Glass Scout Rifle, which is in the same damage archetype, this thing just blows chunks. The Vision of Confluence is way more accurate, also has Full Auto, it's just better in pretty much every way. The Doom does have a few things going for it. The Cocoon perk is actually quite good. Will of Light as a passive perk is useful in a lot of scenarios, and most importantly, it's Void. The other weapons this is competing with right now is the Atheon's Epilogue, a fast-firing auto rifle, and the Word of Crota, a hand cannon. So if you want a more versatile Void weapon for when it is, let's say, a Void Burn Strike playlist, the Doom is actually going to be one of your best choices. And moving on, we have another Void primary weapon, the Zaouli's Bane hand cannon. This weapon also has Will of Light, bonus damage against taken, and the Cocoon perk, both decent. It has a choice of several different ballistics which will mess with the impact and range and stability pretty substantially. It also has, in the last perk slot, Life Leech. 3 rapid kills will heal you a small amount and begin health regeneration, somewhat like the Touch of Mercy perk from the Touch of Malice. Now, the Zaouli's Bane is actually an incredibly unique hand cannon. Firstly, it belongs to the fastest firing archetype of hand cannons. However, because of its ballistics, it can actually increase its impact. So it's firing as fast as the other fast firing hand cannons in the game, but doing more damage than them. So that means your damage output with the Zaouli's Bane is actually one of the best for any hand cannon in Destiny, which is obviously a huge upside. However, there's also some pretty substantial downsides when using this weapon. If you want to get this setup and you want to have higher impact than normal, which, is the one main benefit of this gun, you're going to use a ballistics that drastically lower the stability. So when you're trying to get that maximum damage output, you're going to be missing quite a bit, which is obviously going to lower your damage output. Furthermore, it doesn't have very good range. In fact, it has pretty abysmal range. And if you do want to use the one perk that substantially increases it, Reinforced Barrel, you're going to lower your already not great stability. The Zaouli's Bane also suffers from an insanely long reload, like just comically long. So yes, it does have the benefit of having pretty amazing damage output, but it suffers from all those flaws. So at the end of the day, it's a pretty average hand cannon. The Word of Crota, which also deals Void, is probably better. Now moving on to the solar primary weapons, we have the Smite of Merain Pulse Rifle. This weapon is actually pretty good. Also has Will of Light and Cocoon, both good, and has, very importantly, Firefly. Pulse rifles tend not to do that. Firefly is not found on any other pulse rifle, I believe, so that makes the Smite actually quite deadly and quite good in PvE. Other pulse rifles have a much harder time spreading their damage around, but the Smite is going to be almost Fatebringer-esque in that regard, spreading around its damage to multiple enemies at the same time. So in terms of its perks, it's a pretty decent PvE weapon. There's a lot of perks, Cocoon, Firefly, that you're going to be very happy to have in PvE. However, stats-wise, that's where this weapon suffers. Firstly, and by far the main thing, is that it has just not great stability. It has pretty terrible stability, and no perk that it has really helps with that factor. So when using it in PvE, it can be a little bit difficult to get those long range shots because this thing is recoiling up quite a bit. It also doesn't have amazing reload and has a decent magazine, but just the stats are pretty painfully average. With that being said, average stats combined with great perks equals overall a pretty decent weapon. It's also good that this thing is solar burn. So in a solar burn playlist, this is probably one of the better weapons you can use, with its other main competitor being the Abyss Defiant Auto Rifle from Crota's End. So right now the Smite is one of the better solar primaries you can use. I think the Vex Mythic class still beats this out, but the Vex is a lot harder to get than the Smite. Alright, now moving on. Last and definitely least, we have the Anguish of Drystan Adept Arc Exotic Auto Rifle. This thing is absolute trash. And here's why. First of all, its perks are actually, well, great. It's got Will of Light, it's got Cocoon, it's got Braced Frame, which is usually fantastic on auto rifles, really helping out with increasing the stability with lowering that recoil, letting you land multiple shots. But for whatever reason, the Anguish of Drystan decided that we're going to throw all of the auto rifle logic out the window and just make a terrible, terrible gun. And here's why it's terrible. This is the Anguish of Drystan shooting with braced frame, with almost maxed out stability. I'm just doing a wall test, so I'm shooting this gun and I'm letting it go. I'm not resisting at all. Alright, now let's switch to this Shadow Price. Now the Shadow Price I'm using has much worse stability. It's outfitted for extra range. It does have counterbalance, which eliminates horizontal recoil, but keeps vertical recoil intact. So don't even mention the horizontal recoil, just look how much less this gun recoils upwards. The Anguish of Drystan, with nearly double the stability of the Shadow Price, is recoiling more than twice as much. That's insane. Like, that doesn't make any sense. I made a video way back when this was the relevant raid weapon, when it just came out, saying that this weapon was trash, that it made no sense that a raid weapon would be this bad. Guys, it honestly feels like when you use this weapon, it truly does feel like it's glitched. Like someone at Bungie just entered the wrong number in its recoil pattern, and that's why it's so insane. This weapon just shoots upward. It feels strange to use. It feels unlike any other auto rifle I've ever used. Honestly, it feels like it should be in a different damage archetype, like it should do more damage than normal. But unfortunately, it does the exact same damage as that Shadow Price. And you may be thinking, wow, Rick, you've just proven that this weapon has way more recoil than any other auto rifle, and it's practically unusable because of that. But actually, if you go back to the video I made calling this weapon trash, there's a surprising amount of dislikes. People actually defending this gun. Oh, well, who cares if it has the worst recoil in the game? It spawns with a very high light level. Well, now with 1-to-1 infusion, light level is practically irrelevant. You can make anything a high light level, so that excuse is gone. This weapon has basically nothing going for it. The one benefit is that it's arc. It's an arc primary weapon. If this is your only arc primary weapon, yes, of course, this is going to be decent for an arc burn playlist. But if you have the Zalo Supercell, if you have the Fang of Iryut, if you have the Fatebringer, if you have the Prettiest Timepiece, all of those other arc weapons, those are all going to be way better than this piece of crap. Don't use this gun. This gun is an embarrassment. Frankly, it is actually pretty freaking stupid that this weapon is a raid auto rifle. It should be like a good weapon, but it's so bad. Alright guys, that is it for all of the different exotic weapons you can get from the King's Fall raid. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this video and found it informative. If you did, please remember to help me out by simply rating and especially sharing this video. If you guys want to see more Destiny content, be sure to slap that subscribe button. And if you actually want the subscribe button to do something, you have to press the bell beside subscribe to be notified of new uploads. Now guys, if you want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter at Chelchis. Also check out my official merch linked in the description down below if you're interested in supporting the channel. Lastly guys, also linked down below is my Twitch channel, and we do raid carries on every raid including King's Fall, so if you're interested in getting these weapons, definitely check out the Twitch channel. Guys, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.